Here we are, Location Luxe. I'm your host, Alan Canas, and here in Season 1, we'll be focused on what we're calling the Great Lifestyle Migration. On each episode, I'll be right here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. Over the last few decades, we've witnessed a great migration for employment and technology development. As such, the need and demand for homes has been among the highest in the country. These migration choices are giving people an extraordinary opportunity to explore new locations, amenities, and lifestyle options. And that's why we're here. Location Luxe. I'm so pleased to welcome another one of my favorite real estate colleagues, direct on location, Bob Pennypacker, direct from Healdsburg. Bob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Alan. It's really a pleasure to be part of this.
You are one of the most terrific real estate agents in Healdsburg. And Bob, today you're going to be discussing Healdsburg, and not only is it a destination location, it is a beautiful lifestyle. But Bob, before we go into that, I would love for you to please tell us a little bit about you, who you are, your business, and where are you right now?
Oh, I'm in one of our local Sotheby's offices. I spent 20 years as an architect working on mostly large-scale commercial and transportation facilities. So when I made my migration to Healdsburg 18 years ago, I established a small residential design practice and absolutely loved it. Loved it so much, I became my own client and built a spec house. And through that process, I saw real estate from a totally different perspective and decided this is what I needed to be doing.
Bob, we're all hearing about the buzz regarding Healdsburg. It is a huge draw, not only regarding wineries, but it is a first home market and a secondary home market. What is the big buzz about?
Someone said you can tell a lot about a community just by how people eat. And we really eat well here in Healdsburg. Farm to table is just the norm. And it's a food culture that permeates the whole community. And I think that's part of it. Besides the wine, that's a major attraction here. And even when you go to people's homes, it's the same devotion to the land, the food, and how it's presented. I mean, when I first moved here and was invited to potlucks, I was blown away by just the quality of the food and the wine. And at first I thought they were competitive events, but it's not that at all. People just want to present their best. And it's, it's really a pleasure living here and experiencing that. Once people get here, they understand how much we really have to offer. It's a very cycle-friendly environment. Just a few minutes from town, we have redwood forests and hiking trails. And during the summer, the Russian River is a huge draw with rafting and paddleboarding. There's so much to do here, and at the same time, like I think down in the Silicon Valley, they refer to Sonoma County as Slow-Noma because it gives everybody a chance to step back and relax.
Bob, could you tell me a little bit about what the weather is like?
Weather is beautiful. I think we're going to be in the 70s this week. Normally we have two seasons, just wet and dry.
Oh, nice.
It's a very gentle environment. Good for grapes.
Beautiful.
And tomatoes.
Perfect for grapes and tomatoes. Let's dive a little bit more into the culture. Tell me about the schools, the resorts that are surrounding the area that people that are moving there are going to be interested in.
So for the schools, what's kind of interesting is that populations in them had been decreasing over the last several years. I think basically because so many of the demographic that's moving here is older empty nester types. But what has been interesting since shelter in place happened and work from home, we've been getting a huge influx of young families, which is it's really nice to see because it's kind of rejuvenating the town. And as for resorts, I think, we're a town of about 11,000 people, and I think we have 1,400 hotel rooms so far. And right now, one of the big game changers is Montage has just opened a facility at the north end of town that's absolutely stunning. And they've done it so well because unless you know it's there, you'd never find it. So many of these hotels that come in, they're just kind of almost an eyesore. You have to wait for the landscaping to cover them up. But this was so well planned.
I know Healdsburg has a lot of architectural influences, different architectural influences. Could you please tell me about those?
Healdsburg, I think ever since its founding, has kind of been on the forefront of architectural innovation. So the city was founded shortly after the Civil War, the gold rush. A lot of the people who came here were disillusioned gold miners who discovered that, the real gold was in the local real estate. It took off pretty quickly, and when it reached a population of only about 1,000, they built this massive neo-Romanesque city hall. Unfortunately, it was torn down in the 60s, but for that enthusiasm for civic architecture, to me, I think is just incredibly impressive. When you get out in the vineyards, it's very common to see, beautiful Mediterranean style homes. I mean, everybody went through the Tuscan phase across the country, but when it's really well done, it's stunning. Neoclassical and Victorian were all very cutting edge styles at the end of the 19th century. We have just beautiful examples of both those types of styles in our downtown area. Now, sort of there's a lot of the modern farmhouse look. Modern, just in of itself, is very popular.
Bob, tell me, where are most of the buyers coming from? Where are you seeing them coming from today?
I'd say most of our buyers are coming from San Francisco, the Peninsula, the South Bay, some from the East Bay. We get quite a few from Los Angeles as well, and we have plenty of East Coast people who've moved here. But most of them is Bay Area.
How easy is it to get to and from Healdsburg from other areas of the country?
There's the Sonoma County Airport that is about 20 minutes away, and it has flights to Portland, Denver, LA, Seattle. So what a lot of people do is fly to one of those hubs if they're going across country or long haul flights. If they prefer San Francisco or Oakland, those are also possibilities. Those are about an hour and a half away though. I just love the logo for this airport. It just says so much about the vibe in Sonoma County. It was named after Charles Schultz. And basically, we take life really seriously here because it's just so much fun.
I love it. Bob, what are the different price points in Healdsburg and the surrounding areas?
It depends on location, totally like everything else. When buyers first come here, after having spent time in one of the hotels, they either want bungalow downtown or a vineyard property out in the country. So downtown, the old historical district, you can get a fixer for between 700 and 800 a square foot. If you want turnkey, it can easily go up to 1,400 a square foot. There are some up and coming areas just outside of downtown, an area that was developed in the 50s and 60s that are just ripe for renovation or scraping. And some of those you could probably get for in the 600 a square foot range.
How is the appreciation values year after year in Healdsburg and the surrounding areas?
I'd say over the last 5 years, we've seen between 5 and 10% appreciation
pretty good.
per year.
What are the conditions that homes are being put on the market?
The conditions that properties come to market here is all over the map. What I've found, even when people, like prior to selling, they want to fix things up and make major improvements or whatever, I do what I can to discourage that, because even when some place may seem turnkey to the seller, a buyer will come in and just gut the whole thing and do what he wants. So it's kind of interesting. Fixers seem to be really popular because they're lower priced and people can put their own stamp on them.
Bob, one of my favorite questions is, tell me about your favorite buyer story.
I had been working with some buyers. They had very specific requirements. We weren't finding anything, and I ran across a property. It had this beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright inspired home on it. They weren't interested just because the land was too small. And finally one day I said, come on, we're nearby, humor me. Let me show it to you. And they fell in love with it. So my buyers put in an offer that was just slightly under asking, not terribly. And this never happened to me. The sellers came back with a counteroffer that was $20,000 less than what we had offered.
Wow.
So everybody was happy, needless to say.
I'll bet you they were. Bob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alan.
Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to Product Tour. Energized by a passion to push the boundaries of excellence, beauty, and innovation, for over 50 years, Eldorado Stone has been creating stone veneer that incorporates yet modernizes those qualities first produced by Mother Nature. The focus of the brand is on humanizing spaces and accentuating the connection between the built environment and the outside world. And with their deep understanding of the latest market trends, Eldorado Stone is crafting products right here in the United States to fit the needs of you, the designer. With me today to discuss the brand is Sarah Lagrasso, Director of Marketing and Product Design. Welcome, Sarah. It's really lovely to have you today.
Thank you, Helene. So happy to be here.
So we are here today to talk stone, and that's veneer, of course. And I'm not sure if everyone is actually familiar with the Eldorado brand. And I would love if you could provide us with just a little insight into the history and the mission of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Eldorado Stone is a national brand. We've been around for over 50 years. Previously known for the most believable architectural stone veneer, and our latest push has really been, like you're saying, to kind of humanize the brand, really accentuate the spaces where we work, play, and live every day.
So you've been with the company for the last 15 years, and given your role leading product design, of course, you've always stayed on top of the latest market trends. And I really would love to hear from you. How have you seen the needs of the designer really change during that time period at the company?
So I think, design is always ever changing and evolving, and you're seeing the shifts in design styles, you're seeing the natural shifts that occur in color palettes, but we're also seeing, I think, the shift in how people are living in these spaces every day, and the activities and kind of the personalities that are coming out in those spaces are being much more incorporated into the design as well. So of course we're seeing natural shifts with styles and profiles and textures and color palettes, but we're also seeing a much bigger push of personalizing a space and making it, more comfortable or inviting to that person that's living in that space day to day.
Well, with your product, of course, there's really no better source of inspiration than Mother Nature. So would you say that you're really capturing what the best she has to offer and modernizing it?
I think we are. I think I'm confident to say that. I think the human spirit has a natural tendency to seek connections with Mother Nature and want to be surrounded by it. I think Eldorado Stone as a brand, as a company, does our best to replicate the natural textures and the nuances and the characteristics that come from Mother Nature. And then when getting into, developing the color palettes, Mother Nature is the best source of inspiration for that. And we try to incorporate those into the color development. With the design trends kind of evolving and changing to some of these lighter and brighter color palettes, we're not chasing just monochromatic colors. There's natural undertones and currents of accent colors that are subtly involved in the overall color development that still allows the profile to have some movement, some depth, and give it a much more relevant appearance when incorporating it into your design today.
So I would love to know, because especially as we're talking how you're developing these color palettes and of course the texture profiles, beyond Mother Nature, do you have other sources of inspiration that you really look to that really helps with that development?
Absolutely. There's inspiration everywhere. It could be a piece of art. It could be, absolutely a natural element that we may find outside. It could be, a material, a textural material that has a beautiful color palette or a beautiful, sheen or something to it that we're going to pull from it. We found inspiration based on, personality traits that come through some of these designers or within the A&D community that we collaborate with. So all of that, I think, lends itself into the development and kind of inspiration of products that we're developing.
So, speaking to the A&D community, which you're very well connected with, have you found, especially in this last year, that conversations that you're having with designers and really what their needs are have changed?
Absolutely. I think if we're addressing potentially this last year, post-pandemic, I think a lot of the changes that are occurring are surrounding the form and functionality of your design in your space. You have a lot more layered elements that are happening when you're talking about, work and play all in the same environment. So I think a multifaceted design is what we're seeing kind of come through when people are looking to how do I design an office that can also be used for, potentially online learning, or how do I do a living room that can also accommodate, X, Y, Z, other elements that would be pulled into it. So I think some of the shifts that we're seeing are a multifunctional role in spaces, either how to create some separation within those spaces, how to create definition between those spaces. So I think some of those shifts we're seeing, and, we're certainly looking, to create products, in a sense of what's happening right now where, stress may be overmounting. We're looking to develop products that when incorporated into your space can bring you a sense of calm, potentially a sense of sanctuary, open up, a brighter, airier kind of color palette that might make you feel a little fresh or clean. I think we're seeing little bits of that kind of shift where it's not so centrally focused just on the product itself, but more of how that product is integrated into the overall design of the environment.
So, it's come up a couple of times now in the conversation, but of course, sort of one trend that we've been seeing definitely over the last year across a lot of different categories, especially in architectural materials, is this shift to whiter, brighter tones. And so how are you seeing how that's being incorporated to some of your newer products, two of which are Grand Banks Limestone and Loire Valley Rough Cut?
Absolutely. We've seen that shift coming down the pipeline for a few years. And it's actually, it hasn't gone away. If anything, it's gotten stronger. I think there's, a natural appeal to something that has a brighter color palette that can reflect light. It can make a space feel bigger, can make a space feel airier, maybe a little lighter, maybe a little cleaner. It certainly creates a beautiful backdrop to other accents or elements that are going to be involved in that space to let some of those, furniture pieces or art pieces still take center stage. You're referencing the Grand Banks Limestone and the Loire Valley Rough Cut. Those are products that what we were seeing is there was an uptick in a need to want to incorporate traditional stone shapes such as those. Those are typically traditional stone shapes. And what the designers were looking for is a modernized color palette. So we created these lighter, kind of airier color palettes that are not flat white. They have accents, they have grays and rust and, a little bit of, blondes that are integrated into it so that it doesn't feel so flat. You absolutely still have that tactile appeal, that's gonna come through with the textures and the color palette as a whole. So it's, aiding in kind of that overall aesthetic of that environment.
So white is not just white anymore. So how are you able to really create that depth of color though? So that even that one can't even find in Mother Nature herself?
Yeah, the craftsmen that are on our team that are part of the color development, the process is it's layers and layers of coloring within our products. So it's not like you're saying, it's not just a flat white. It's not just white as white. There's accents and undertones of other colors that are layered on the products. And what that does as a whole, it allows your eye to kind of move across the installation or the application and kind of pick up on some of those nuances. And it helps to kind of create a little bit more of a story. It helps to create some depth, a little bit of personal characterization that you would find in a natural material.
And I'm just curious because, our audience are designers and designers love process. So how long does it take to really develop something like those deep tones and shifts in color that you can find in the limestone and rough cut?
It takes months and months of development. There are some times where we're much more successful at hitting the colors that we want. There's other times that we need to trial until, we as a team feel that we've got it right. But I think for us, when we know we've got it right, it's a much faster, easier process. There's limits that we have with replicating Mother Nature. We certainly strive to get as close as we can to some of the natural colors that you will find, but we're also pushing the boundaries a little bit with some of these more modern and contemporary colors that you may not find exactly the same in Mother Nature, but to try and meld some of these color palettes together is what is helping us kind of modernize true color palettes that you would find out in Mother Nature with still hints and touches of contemporary palettes that we would see or we would want to see in design spaces.
So I really love this sort of dichotomy then that you're producing. So if you're thinking about Grand Banks Limestone and the Loire Valley Rough Cut, which you spoke about a little bit, is maybe they're more traditional texture profiles, but then you're taking these really modern color palettes and sort of bringing it together to make it much more contemporary, sort of for, obviously for modern day settings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is definitely a need for that we see from the design community, that they want to be able to incorporate a natural material. And I think stone is one of the best materials to incorporate into your space. But, you know, you may not want your clean lines, you know, potentially if it's coming off either a little too contemporary or a little too cold, they still want some of that warmth that they would find from a natural material, or even just some of the character that you would find in the shapes and textures of it. The limestone and the rough cut are beautiful examples of a very traditional profile. And we were seeing that the more that we were kind of toying with the idea of these lighter, brighter, more modern color palettes, it really started to resonate with that design community. And we were having designers take some of our older profiles and they were whitewashing over top of it because they still wanted that look of that traditional stone, but they just needed a brighter color palette. So, I mean, we've had beautiful inspiration from the design community has led us to this collaboration of some of the new products. And I think, you know, I think it absolutely will be a trend that continues forward.
So something else you really touched on earlier in the conversation was this idea of well-being. And certainly there's been a greater emphasis on health and wellness of inhabitants within a space. And with that comes sort of this push for biophilia and how it's become an even more important design tool that's being utilized with interiors. So obviously, I know you speak a lot about sort of these benefits of incorporating biophilic design within an environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that topic specifically, I am so eager to speak about. I think I'm really drawn to it because it has such a personal and humanized kind of sentiment to it. We all love being surrounded by nature. I think, you know, if you were to ask yourself when you're walking on a beach, how does that make you feel? When you are on vacation and you're in the mountains, how do you feel? I think there's indirect natural biology that's happening to us that creates a calm, creates a, you know, a sense of happiness. You know, does it reduce your stress? Do you feel, you know, like you've created a sanctuary? And I think taking all of those benefits and being able to incorporate that into your day-to-day environment where it may feel a little bit more hectic, a little bit more chaotic. I think having somewhere that you can retreat back to, or even having something that's tactile where if you rub your hands on it, you know, do you have this pinch of nostalgia that may happen that brings you back to a vacation? Or, you know, does the color palette, you know, kind of just make you feel good or fresh? Or, you know, I think the biophilic subject it's absolutely more important now than I think than ever before. We're a little bit more kind of stuck in our homes and stuck in our spaces. And so to be able to take the outdoors and bring them in and have them provide true benefit to you in your everyday space, I think is extremely valuable.
Well, definitely. I mean, I'm going to get limestone or rough cut because, you know, don't we all want to be like in Europe right now?
Exactly.
Travel. But no, and I love this idea that you keep on coming back to, which is this idea of sanctuary, especially given the fact that, you know, our homes have become so multifaceted, multifunctional, and it's like, you need to work, you need to live and play, like you said, but like, where's our time for like that sort of mental and physical and emotional rest?
Right.
Because it's absolutely necessary for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was an article that I was reading that was talking about kind of the psychology of cladding in your space. And it was saying, you know, with technology now, you know, we're on computers, we're on cell phones. I mean, your eyes are naturally so busy. Like you're saying, you have multi-layers of things that are happening on your everyday when you think of work and kids and life and things to do and whatnot. And this article was beautiful because it talked about giving your eyes relief and the trigger that it's almost like a snowball effect that when your eyes have relief, it is a trigger effect that can start to affect kind of your heartbeat, and it can start to, you know, create a calm within yourself. So, and again, that touches onto some of these cleaner, you know, more muted color palettes give a natural visual relief to your body. You know, some of these clean lines that you may see kind of come through give, again, just relief visually. And so I think, you know, some of those things absolutely are going to play a hand in design when people are, you know, creating beautiful new spaces. I think they're absolutely going to start looking to how can you create kind of this sanctuary or this retreat that you need to create in your own space.
No, I mean, I think we all can admit that we need a little respite from staring at technology, and like, what better? So of course, incorporating, you know, we've talked about for biophilia, there's the natural light that can help with that, but also so incorporating greenery like you have behind yourself, or stone, which we've touched on. But I know something, you know, I would love to let the audience know is like, obviously your product offerings go well beyond the stone veneers, and you actually have great collections like something like Vintage Ranch, which celebrates the character of like the classic American barnwood, right? So it's right. Like there's a lot of different opportunities given what products Eldorado Stone has in your portfolio.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Vintage Ranch is the profile that we developed a few years ago, and it has been booming. You know, I mean, that barn, the farmwood kind of barn house look absolutely has been a trend, and it's beautiful. And we've continued to expand development on the Vintage Ranch profile. But again, yes, that's emulating a reclaimed barnwood look that you can incorporate into your space. And because it's produced out of a concrete material, it lends itself to more spaces that you can utilize it in, where you wouldn't necessarily be able to utilize, you know, wood within your spaces. So again, and you know, some of the characteristics that are captured within the Vintage Ranch are just stunning. You can literally run your hand across it. You can feel kind of the milling marks. You can capture some of the graining that's in it. It really is a spectacular product to incorporate into any spaces.
So it's interesting because the barnwood makes me think of this next topic that I really wanted to bring up, was because, you know, we're speaking about residential spaces, and they've really become highly personalized over time, especially in the last year, because I think we've spent just so much time at home. But you have this ethos that you really like to call, which is lived in luxury, which I think kind of feels like it ties into that barnwood kind of idea. And I would love to know what lived in luxury means to you.
For me, and this is probably strictly for me, and hopefully someone else resonates with this. I have 2 kids at home, and my job, my occupation is to develop products and develop things that are incorporated into, you know, beautifying or designing a space. And it's oftentimes difficult to balance having beautiful things with kids or with family, you know, and I think lived in luxury for me is being able to kind of capture both of that. I want to be able to be surrounded, you know, by luxurious elements that are able to kind of create a focal point or a showcase, you know, in my home, but I also need it comfortable enough to where I can live with my kids and I can live with family coming over and dogs. And so, you know, for me, lived in luxury is kind of the balance of both. It's the juxtaposition of having old and new into, you know, developed into the same space. It's taking a deeper dive into what are the textures and the materials that I want to, you know, utilize in my space. I don't want anything that is going to feel so cold or so stark or just too off limits to where it's so beautiful, but don't touch it. Or it's, you know, it was designed so well that I don't want to sit on it. I think lived in luxury is trying to harness both of those kind of ideas and bringing them together in the same space. So, you know, I think it's really about creating a space that works with you and works for your environment on a design side, but also making kind of the form and functionality of it work with your everyday so that you are able to enjoy the space that you just created at any point, you know, within your lifestyle.
I mean, I love the fact that it's like, it's nothing is too precious, right? And it's really about this idea of accessibility and comfort. But, you know, as I was sort of thinking about this idea, it made me think of like, is lived in luxury sort of the shabby chic of the 21st century?
Right. I mean, I think so. I think it is kind of your shabby chic. I think it's It's absolutely, and this is just my, our coined term of it. It's not anything that, is out in the design world. It's just a different dialect that, we could put a name to. But absolutely, it's something that, I think more and more people are going to want to pursue, to be able to have nice things and have things that, shine and sparkle and make your place, everything you want it to be, but also carry that personalization into that space, because you have a life, you have things to do, you have, things that will happen in that space, and to be able to make that work in the same environment as where you're wanting to, create this beautiful artistic piece. I think it's really important to kind of marry both of those together.
So really, for designers to figure out how to really personalize either their spaces, of course, their clients, and to really simplify the specification process, you've created some really great useful tools to really help them figure out what is the best Eldorado product to fit their spaces.
Yeah, if you visit our website, eldoradostone.com, we have a variety of tools that designers or consumers can use. We've got a visualizer space, which is a visualizer tool that you can go in and you can use any of our existing environments, and you can play around with different products. You can also upload your own photo and then cast any type of products that you want in your space, so that you're able to really visualize what your space would look like in a different, a different variety of product options. We also have a ton of mood boards that can show different styling of how materials play together, how different color palettes may play together. And then we also have a very large library of inspiration images that can walk you through a variety of applications with a variety of products, so that you're able to get a sense of, what is attractive to you. And then once you drill down to kind of the product level, we also have a product selector that's on our website that you can click through and click into the style and get down to a category of style. You can click into the types of lines that you are looking to create in a shape, in a texture, and then you can pick your color palettes. And once you've kind of finished that questionnaire, it'll populate some options that are suited for the style or the inspiration that you're looking for. So a large variety of different tools that someone can use to kind of narrow in their focus on what they're looking for.
No, I mean, I love that you made it really simple, and especially offering a lot of the inspiration behind, so that the design community understands it. And something that, we should make very clear too, is that, we've really been speaking about residential spaces, but, you have tools and obviously products that actually span both from residential, obviously, to the commercial world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got content that is surrounding commercial applications that's showing, our products that is being used on larger applications within the hospitality world, within, the multifamily, within retail. I think we've got some great examples on there. And all of the tools that we're talking about can be used for both residential or commercial. So they still lend themselves to both, kind of applications. The inspiration gallery has a section on there that is strictly commercial focused. And we're always continuing to expand on that library to be able to show, people the diverse kind of collection of how you can use stone veneer in a project, both small and large, both, residential and commercial. So it's absolutely a growing asset that we'll continue to nurture.
That's great. Well, Sarah, obviously today was just only a little dive into the world of Dorado Stone, but, I really would love to thank you obviously so much for your time and for the insight that you've provided. And of course, for our amazing, lovely audience out there, please make sure to check out the Eldorado Stone website to learn more about their products and of course, their inspiration and specification tools. Thank you.